Hey everybody, John Skiba here, and in this video I'm going to go through the pros and cons of filing Chapter 7 bankruptcy. The decision to file bankruptcy is an excruciating one for most people, and there's a lot of thought that goes into it. Is this the right step? Is this worth it? In this video I'm going to go over all of those considerations that you may have and some maybe that you hadn't thought of. If this is your first time here to my YouTube channel, go ahead and click subscribe. Check on the little bell, that way you'll be notified each and every week of the new videos I put out that'll help you deal with your serious debt problems. All right, let's talk about Chapter 7 bankruptcy and some of the considerations that go into filing Chapter 7. This is a very difficult decision for pretty much everybody. I always say no one wants to file for bankruptcy. People get into this situation where they feel like that there's no other options. You're losing sleep. Maybe you're getting your wages garnished, you're getting sued, and things are just getting super stressful, and so you're looking for a way to deal with it and deal with it quickly. So in this video, I want to go over three of the pros, three of the good side of filing a Chapter 7 bankruptcy, and then three of the things that can negatively impact you about going through the Chapter 7 bankruptcy process. The first positive thing about Chapter 7 is that it will, with few exceptions, eliminate almost all of your unsecured debt. Now, unsecured debts are debts where there's no collateral or property attached to them. For instance, credit cards. Those are unsecured debts. Medical bills, personal loans. All of those debts go away completely in a Chapter 7 case. Now, it's important to note that some unsecured debts do not go away in a Chapter 7. Most taxes don't go away, even though if the taxes are more than 3 years old, there's a possibility they could go away. And student loans, those are another big one. They typically do not go away. They're typically not discharged in a Chapter 7 bankruptcy. But other than that, if you're dealing with credit card debts, medical bills, those kind of things are causing you the problem, or you're being sued by one of your credit card companies, or a medical issue, or a personal loan, those things can go away completely. They'll be discharged through your bankruptcy, and you won't legally be obligated to pay those any further. So that's the first big thing, is that it eliminates the unsecured debts. Second positive thing about bankruptcy is it has a very powerful tool called the automatic stay. And what this is, as soon as you file your bankruptcy case, the court issues an order called the automatic stay that stops all collections. This means everything stops. If they're going to foreclose on your house, that stops. If they're garnishing your pay, that stops. If they're going to repossess your car, it stops. And even phone calls, snotty letters, all the things that creditors do, all of that stops as soon as your case is filed. And it literally is immediate. When I file a bankruptcy case for clients, there's an email. I can actually log into the court site and I can download this order, provide that to the creditors. The court sends it out over a few days, but we can actually get it immediately upon filing, and it will stop all of that. That can give you some peace of mind. Sometimes that's what people need, just to be able to kind of think clearly and make good decisions, is they just need everybody to be put at bay. You stop the lawsuits, stop the garnishments, allow you to really kind of regroup and make a decision going forward. So the automatic stay that stops all collections is the second thing, the second real positive thing about a Chapter 7 filing. Now, the third thing that is, to me, one of the best things about Chapter 7 is it does give you a fresh start. It's kind of cliche. We hear about the fresh start that Chapter 7 offers, but it really is. It stops the collections, it gets rid of the unsecured debts, and it allows you to start over and rebuild your credit. You're going to take a big hit. I mean, there's no doubt about that. But I can tell you, often when I see people who try to do debt settlement on their own, particularly if they have a lot of debt, they actually struggle to recover from that more than people who file for bankruptcy. Bankruptcy is one point in time. It's the day you file your case. The further you get away from that, the better off you're going to be. Debt settlement, allowing credit cards to be charged off, and lawsuits, those can stick around for years and even decades if they get a judgment. So the Chapter 7 really brings some finality to it. It wipes the debts out. There's one point in time where we know this is when you filed it, and again, like I said, the further you get away from it, the better. Let's talk about the negative side of things. The biggest one, obviously, is you're going to take a credit hit. There's just no way around it. If you owe money on a credit card or medical bills, personal loans, whatever it is, and you're unable to pay it, the credit's going to be damaged no matter what you do. But with bankruptcy, it's kind of the nuclear option. You are going to take a pretty significant hit, anywhere from 100, 150 point drop in your credit score. And the bigger issue is it does stay on your credit for 10 years. Now, if you look at your credit report, there's a public record section. And the two things that typically show up there are tax liens and bankruptcy filings. That bankruptcy filing will stay there 10 years from the date that you filed your case with the court. Now, the good news is it's not going to impact your credit score for that long. Most people recover from, as far as their credit score coming back up, within about 2 to 3 years. Like FHA will do mortgage loans again 2 years after a Chapter 7. Most other lenders are 3 to 4 years. Car loans are available almost immediately. You're just going to have a bad interest rate on that until you get a year or two away from your bankruptcy filing. So the downside is, yes, it's going to be on there for 10 years. It can impact credit decisions for 10 years. And frankly, it can impact credit decisions for even longer than that, because sometimes they'll just ask, have you ever filed? Not if you filed within the last 10 years. But the good news is that it's not generally as bad as most people think. I don't ever want to sugarcoat it. There's definitely credit consequences to filing, but it's just typically not as bad. It's not as devastating as most people anticipate it is. The second downside to a Chapter 7 filing is it's possible you could lose assets. So with a Chapter 7 case, the upside is you're going to wipe out all that debt. All of that's going to go away. The downside is the court, or more specifically the trustee that's assigned to your case, is going to review all of your assets that you have to disclose in the paperwork, and they're going to determine if you have any assets that can be sold and then the money be given to your creditors. Now, the good news is that most assets are protected in most states. They have laws called exemptions. Like most people have heard of the homestead exemption. Most states have exemptions for household goods, retirement accounts, cars, those types of things. So most of the general basic stuff that you have is exempt. But if you have, a fishing boat that's been paid off for years and it's your pride and joy, if you file Chapter 7, high likelihood something like that's going to be liquidated unless there's an exemption in your state to protect it. Where I practice in Arizona, that specific example, you would lose the boat. It would go away. So that's one of the downsides to it, is its potential there to lose assets. One way to think about it is, let's say you have $50,000 in credit card debt and you're going to lose a few $1,000s in assets. That's a little bit painful there, but it's also better that you're wiping out all of that credit card debt. I always say, if I would have told you beforehand that you could wipe out $50,000 of credit card debt by selling your $4,000 boat, would you do it? And the answer is yes. You would have jumped at the chance to be able to do that. So you may lose some assets, but I can tell you in most states, most things are protected by the exemption laws. The third thing that I want to mention as far as the downside is something that some people get caught up in, particularly people who file bankruptcy without an attorney. And that is, there are certain look-back periods that the court has over certain financial transactions or transfers that you've done over the last couple of years prior to the filing of your bankruptcy. So a big one is what we call preferential payments to insiders. Insiders are family members or friends. If you owe money to a family member or friend, and often when we get into financial difficulty, rightly so, that's the first place we go, is to see if we have family that can help us out. So they may borrow some money and then we're paying them back. If you owe money to a family member or a close friend and you've been repaying that debt over the last 12 months prior to the filing of your bankruptcy, the bankruptcy trustee can go and get those payments back over the last 12 months. Particularly if it's a large amount, they're going to go after it. There's just no doubt about it. This makes Thanksgiving super awkward if they have a federal employee coming and trying to get all this money back that you've paid them. So that may be something where you'd either not want to file Chapter 7 or delay filing it so they don't have that look-back period. Similar type thing for what they call fraudulent transfers. This often sounds more scary than it is. Typically, these aren't situations where people are truly trying to be fraudulent. But if you transferred an asset out of your name in the 2 years prior to the filing of bankruptcy, and you got less than what it was worth, and you were essentially, the court calls it insolvent or broke at the time that you did it, the court may be able to undo that transaction. The idea behind this statute is, let's say that, let's use a boat example again. Let's say that you have that fishing boat, you're worried about losing it in a Chapter 7 bankruptcy, so instead of going into bankruptcy with the boat, you transfer it into your brother's name and then file for bankruptcy. The court is aware of this trick. They've done millions of these things over the years. And so what they do is if you've transferred that and you didn't get any money back for it, if you didn't truly sell it, then they can go and they can get that asset back, bring it into the bankruptcy estate, and then sell it, give the money to your creditors. Again, this causes some issues because if you transfer it to a family member, particularly, or a friend, they're going to get wrapped up in this as the court reaches out to bring that asset back. So the look-back period can cause a little bit of issue with bankruptcy filings that you got to be aware of. And this is where hiring an attorney and consulting as one before you jump into the bankruptcy realm is a big help, because these are the types of things that cause people problems: losing assets, preferential transfers, fraudulent transfers. Those are the things that can really turn what should be a simple Chapter 7. It can really throw a wrench into it and cause you some problems on the road. So those are kind of my pros and cons of a Chapter 7 filing. It's absolutely necessary in some circumstances. In other circumstances, I think people could put together a payment plan or work with their creditors to get out of it. You're going to know that specifically better than someone like me is if you feel like if you're able to do that. But it is a very powerful tool. It can bring some total organization and structure to dealing with your debts if you find yourself in that situation. Appreciate you listening today. If you have any questions or comments, go ahead and put them down in the comments. I do review those and I do respond to them. Happy to see how we could help you out. Thanks for watching today.